I would not qualify this as an authentic Neapolitan pizza, but it's based on the same principles. The board is white, we do not use olive oil in the dough, and the toppings are rather scarce. The differences, and what brings it closer to a New York pizza, are the higher hydration and the longer period of cold fermentation. Let's begin. I will use a food processor. As I've explained before, preparing the dough by hand is quite achievable, but it takes 10 minutes to knead. We will need 450 grams of water at room temperature, 8 grams of salt, 7 grams of instant yeast, as well as 650 grams of pizza flour with at least 11% protein. Close the robot and pull several times so that the water mixes with some of the flour and a thick paste is created. This makes for an easier cleaning of the bowl afterwards. We start the machine. A ball of dough should form almost instantly on the sides of the bowl. If this doesn't happen, add a little more flour. Let the machine run for about 45 seconds to develop the gluten network. Prepare your work surface. Without adding extra flour, take out the dough. Knead it several times and shape it into a ball by folding the edges of the dough towards the center and pushing it out with your thumbs. Divide the dough in 4 equal parts or 280 grams each. With the same movement as before, shape each of the pieces into a ball. Finally, cup the dough with your hands and pull. With this movement, we will have perfect dough balls. The last step is to pinch the seam on the bottom of the dough. Do not miss this step. It will ensure easy opening of the dough without tears. Here is the first difference from the classic recipe. Neapolitan pizza is left to ferment for several hours at room temperature, after which it is permissible to ferment it in the refrigerator. The whole process takes no more than 18 hours. In contrast, the New York pizza ferments in the refrigerator for 78 or more hours. In addition to being very convenient for the home cook, placing the dough in the refrigerator allows the yeast in the dough to slow down the fermentation process, which has more time to slowly feed on the simple sugars in the dough and produce much more complex and pleasant flavors and aromas. In 4 containers, put 1 tablespoon of olive oil each, roll the dough balls in it and close the containers with foil or a lid. Transfer them to the refrigerator and let the yeast do its job. On the day of baking, prepare the tomato sauce. Whole canned peeled tomatoes are used for Neapolitan pizza. Pour the contents of 1 can into a bowl and mash the tomatoes with your hand. Our goal here is not to make a puree, but to have pieces of tomato in the sauce. Check the taste of the tomatoes. If you feel they are too acidic, add 1 teaspoon of sugar. Also add a pinch of oregano and 1 tablespoon of salt. Stir to combine and leave it in the fridge for a few hours. This will enhance the flavors further. The other must-have ingredients for the pizza are mozzarella and pecorino or parmesan. I use 2 types of mozzarella. Low moisture mozzarella that I cut into cubes and buffalo mozzarella. To open the pizza dough, sprinkle a little flour on the work surface as well as on the dough in the container. Take out the dough and sprinkle extra flour on top. With your fingertips, draw a circle in the dough, 1 centimeter or a third of an inch from its edges. This is how we form the pizza board. We continue by pressing the middle part of the pizza with our fingertips again. After a few presses, the dough should have flattened to a size of about 15 centimeters or 6 inches. Run the fingers of one hand under the dough and turn it over to the other hand. Place it on the counter and press the middle part of the pizza again with fingers to flatten it further. To get the final size of the dough, place the palm of your dominant hand on the dough just before the board and pull with the other. After the pull, my left hand turns the dough over on the right, which rotates it 90 degrees and puts it in the starting position. Repeat the movements several times until you reach a pizza base with a diameter of about 25 centimeters or 10 inches. The flour I use allows me to pull the finished pizza crust on the pizza peel. If you are unsure or if your dough is softer, you can transfer the crust directly to the peel sprinkled with some flour. Or you can just put the dough on baking paper. Next, a few spoonfuls of tomato sauce that I smear with the back of the spoon. Do not overdo the sauce, because the pizza will become too moist. Now comes the time for the selected toppings. I made 3 types: margherita, pepperoni and quattro formaggi. For the margherita I added only the buffalo mozzarella and pecorino. For the pepperoni pizza, the 2 types of mozzarella, salami, pepperoni and pecorino. For the quattro formaggi, the 2 types of mozzarella, cheddar and pecorino. Before each of the pizza enters the oven, pour a thin stream of olive oil on top. Now let's turn our attention to the baking process. Surely some of you have already asked themselves, okay, why don't we just make the classic Neapolitan pizza recipe? The classic recipe requires you to bake it for 45 to 50 seconds in an oven with a temperature of 430 to 465 Celsius or 800 to 870 Fahrenheit. Most home ovens can't reach these temperatures, which means you have to bake the pizza longer. The longer it takes to bake, the more the pizza will dry out. And the pizza is ready in 5 to 6 minutes. Unfortunately, the temperature is not high enough to have a great color on the edges of the pizza. If I decide to cook it for longer to make it look perfect, then the dough dries out so much that the pizza board becomes toasted and too crispy. The solution is easy. Bake the pizza on 2 levels. On the lower level I put my baking steel or stone, which I preheat for at least 30 minutes. I'll show you an alternative method as well. Put the pizza in the oven and immediately turn on the grill to maximum. I'm waiting for the pizza board to puff up and the cheeses to melt. Next, put the inverted oven tray as close as possible to the top of the oven. Take out the pizza from the lower level and put it under the grill for about a minute or until golden brown. If you want, now is the time to add a few basil leaves, which you have previously brushed with olive oil. Remove the pizza on a wire rack for a minute until the cheeses firm up. As for the alternative method, take your largest pan, heat it and put the dough in it, followed by the toppings. Do not heat the pan too much, because the dough will burn. As soon as the board puffs up and the cheeses melt, transfer under the grill. Why didn't I use the pan method from the beginning? The only reason is that we are limited by the size of the pizza. That's all from me. Don't be afraid of the dough or the shaping of the pizza. It may take a few tries, but with a little practice and better flour, you will make professional pizzas in no time. What are you still doing here? Get to work and enjoy.